And he does so with his lover at his side. Their union grows ever stronger. The only argument between them, his insistence on bringing his books. I once asked of thee, do illithids possess souls? Astarion. Her great love, Karlach, from whose ashes now the flowers bloom. But by the night orchid's bloom, her mind doth wander to old friends, and an old flame, the one light she is never sad to see, when it doth cast itself upon the steps of the house of grief. Thou hast impressed me, and by his side, throughout it all, his shining star, his love. Thou mayest yet prove a most interesting counterpart to thy divine associates. The Pantheon welcomes thee. The blade still doth devote himself to the protection of the Sword Coast. Poor Jaheira. She gave so much for Baldur's Gate, and never saw it rise anew. He is free from Mizora's leash, if not from the mental scars she inflicted. Will hath pledged to hunt down the devil and slay her. But she's not alone. A rare find indeed, that partner who stands beside her now. Few have the fortitude for such a role, and no one else her love. She thinketh of Karlach still, whose aching breaths she held close to her own as the tiefling's heart expired. Source of my bruises, she once called her, and privately, source of her love. Defied her paranoid queen, freed her people's rebel prince, and found an ally along the way. She prepareth to venture to the hells, where she will stand against the hordes of Zariel, alongside her life's great love. Oft doth Shadowheart's mind turn to her lost love, from whose ashes flowers now bloom. Now thou art illithid, thou must know the truth. That done, he sought out the vampire spawn released to the Underdark, that he may guide and protect them. Thousands follow him now, seeking a haven they might call home. And thou art no more fortunate than thy Balian ally. Poor Astarion. His time in the sun was brief. Thou art a true hero, and Mystra knows it. With thy sacrifice, she hath welcomed thee into Elysium. Mystra was glad to see Gale relinquish the crown, and saw fit to grant him a second chance. Though she did not rid him of the orb, it lieth dormant at last. And yet, thou hast found value in thy mortal life that even gods may envy. Hence thy caution when it came to the continuation of thine own life. And she is not alone. Karlach is right beside her as they battle through the hells. The crown was lost to thee, but thy story was not over. Mystra witnessed thy selflessness in defeating the Netherbrain, and saw fit to reward thee. And he is not done. The next horde pour already at thy door. No bolts can keep their hungry musk from thee. Gale became a god, as he once dreamed he would, and under his pantheon of ruthless ambition doth he draw new souls to his creed. But it is the hamster Boo who truly doth confound me. Thou signed a contract with the devil himself, and did not honour it. Poor noble Will! His soul, once bound, now freed in death, and never to be seen again. Though thou didst perish in that moment, thy soul lingers yet. Thou left many threads unstitched, and the gods do long to weave of them a fate. But she still hath her freedom, and with that she can do much. For the rest, she hath her resolve. She gave herself as she knew it, so her friends could keep their souls. And she gained a new life in the bargain. And he does so with his spouse at his side, the only argument between them, his insistence on bringing his books. Thy wizard sacrificed thee to save the world. But Karlach is long gone now, and Will fighteth in her name. But she hath left it behind for now, for she hath chosen to traverse the hells with Karlach, and through battle with devils and demons doth she seek to serve the Dark Lady still. Her partner came to visit them in time. Shadowheart was nervous to introduce a stranger to their newly reclaimed lives, but their joy was only elevated by her own. Sweet Karlach! Her death was foretold, and yet what life was left was ripped from her before her time. But their wounds are not for Shadowheart to tend. As for now, she fighteth in the hells for Karlach, for a cure. In time, a happy reunion may beckon. Minthara. His devilish form hath become a boon in the hells. The blade striketh fear into devils and demons alike. By his hand was the crown of Karsus once again reforged. His love is right beside him, in body, mind, and blade. She saved her parents from the perverse Shah's torture, that they may begin a new life. Some wounds are slow to heal, and some never will. But in their salvation, she hath found her light. Thou declared them soulless. Thou didst try to do the noble thing, but thou wast not meant for such a noble fate. Thy dark desires prevailed. No metal bars could bind them. Retirement finally found her. The battle over, her swords now rest upon her mantle, a decorative tribute to a life hard fought and well won. He never did face his master, but with his love beside him, new courage hath he found. He and his love scour tomes and ancient texts, seeking a way to return him to the light. Their search hath borne no fruit yet, but they hunt on. Mizora no longer doth darken his doorstep. He relieth now on blade, bow, and wits. Thy part in this hath rendered divine consequence. For with his death did he finally earn fair mistress' grace. Thou hast restored a wizard to his god. He never did face his master. He hunteth him still, in darkness, alone. And he does so with his husband at his side. The only argument between them, his insistence on bringing his books. Rumors of their debauchery abound, but all agree a night reveling with them will be the greatest or most horrifying night of your life. And what more beautiful terror can there be than that wrought by Minthara and the Mind Flayer by her side? Thy infernal engine is sated, stilled by the illithid form that thou now callest thine own, yet its power burns within thee still. Meanwhile, Will hath taken a wife. A prettier pair hath Baldur's Gate ne'er known, nor more loyal to its people. Against all odds thou hast survived. Wilt thou reflect with me upon thy triumph? Meanwhile, Will hath taken a husband. A prettier pair hath Baldur's Gate ne'er known, nor more loyal to its people. And he is not alone. 2 armchairs hath his library now, one for him, one for his loving wife. Thou signed a contract with the devil, and thou art yet to honor it. In more ways than one. Thou played thy part in weaving the fabric of fate itself. Thou art a true hero. His former master destroyed, thousands of souls sacrificed, and his place as the vampire ascendant secured. His parties alone are worthy of ballads and legends. But for every thread thou sewed, so did the gods unravel another. As thine ambitions increase, so too do thy followers. Each new dawn sees their number grow along with thy renown. And thou wert not the only one to be so changed. Poor Shadow Heart. In life, she turned from darkness, yet in the end, darkness reclaimed her. Lady Shah's right hand. She travelled for a while with her illithid love before returning to the cloister. Didst think I had forgotten thee? Thou art gone in body, yet something of thy spirit doth remain, thy soul, that indivisible part of thee. Hers was a tragic death, indeed. And she's not alone. Her partner is still by her side, and doth soothe her with their company. He promised to share godhood with the one he loved, but the distribution of such power is yet to be resolved, for ambition does not like to share. He longs for the day he may sway the city's opinion and raise statues in its name. The illithid who saved Baldur's Gate and captivated his heart. The Emperor. It hath been busy, it seems. Though the orb yet burns within thy chest, she didst contain its hunger. Thy life is thine own once more. Will hath other business to attend to now. A father he's become. A little raven guard he raiseth with his love. A courageous child, an adventurous one, his newest shining star. Thou never wast one for patience, and a little more is needed yet, until we next meet. Poor Lizelle. She died far from her homeland, on a distant plain. What path doth await her now is yet untold. The world entire is hers to venture into, and perhaps hers to claim. She fulfilled her destiny, and she was not alone. She achieved her lifelong desire, ascension, with her partner by her side. Though thou no longer servest as her chosen, thy studies lead thee to ever greater wisdom and understanding. And he is not alone. Karlach is right beside him in body, mind, and blade. Mizora shadoweth him still, but the devil as yet keepeth her distance, and her schemes remain unknown. The weave knows her purpose. It will guide her plainly, if she listens. He abandoned all thoughts of pursuing Karsus' example. Baldur's Gate hath never known a steadier pair of hands. Grand Dukes Will and older Ravengard, their differences cast aside, are bonded closer than ever. The vampire ascendant. He chose to leave Baldur's Gate with his consort and travel the world, indulging in every delight it offered. Thou were wise to seek refuge from the quickening madness with thy death. She fulfilled her destiny, returned to the stars. She achieved her lifelong desire, ascension. Thou wilt, I can think of vanishingly few who would make a monster of themselves to save the world. No less noble in his new role, the blade of Avernus hath set his sights on the hells, preying on the devils and demons who threaten the sword coast. Nay, stronger, for the Emperor hath an Illithid ally now, whose mind, it is said, outstrips even its own. Though one is left to wonder who its new face will be, now that Duke Stelmane is gone. He hath ventured to Avernus with his love. In his absence, the Council of Four ruleth in his stead. He never did salvage the crown of Carsus. No more at peace than she would have been fighting among the stars, for such is love. But her cup is full, and her weapons shine still. Thou wast thy father's favoured, yet thou cast favour aside. Thine courage was rewarded with lunacy, for father's disappointment in thee hath no bounds. The balance of the world restored. The balance of these mortals still to be accounted for. Not least for the rumours of the Illithid that doth frequent them. Cazador's days are dwindling now. It will not be long before they find him, and put an end to all his wrongs. Defied paranoid Vlaakith, and freed her people's rebel prince. Now she rideth the stars with him. To defy both Illithid infection and divine desires took no small strength of will. The lost and wandering flock to him, and in him find their home. He doth not turn away a single soul, not even the mind flayer he once called his own. Grand Duke though he may now be, every high son will still maketh time to tend to more humble roots. Karlach returned to Avernus to do battle in the hells. Gale works night and day to try to find a cure for her heart. He hath not found it yet, but he hath not lost his hope. And what more beautiful terror can there be than that wrought by Minthara and her love? From whence did he originate, and what purpose doth he serve? Such questions demand a lifetime of scholarship, though I fear even an immortal life will not be long enough. And he does so with his wife at his side. The only argument between them, his insistence on bringing his books. Though his love is notably missing. Karlach. She perished with the expiration of her heart. Though Astarion doth hold hope that there is life after death for her yet. After all, there was for him. Thou saved the world, Gale. With his former master dead, the Spawn took the palace, where he once served. His first act, raze it to the ground and burn away every trace of Cazador's existence. The Emperor survived so far, only to have their plan fail. And he is not alone. 2 armchairs hath his library now, one for him, one for his loving spouse. Thou hast no more need of me, for thou art at long last home. Hell hath no fury, like a vampire ascendant newborn. He and Karlach have taken Avernus by storm. He in search of glory, she in search of a cure for her heart. But rest assured, thine allies have not seen the last of thee. Karlach, thy spirit singeth, even in thy form so changed. And he is not alone. His shining star is right beside him, in body, mind, and blade. But the one thing she could not do for him was cure his greatest love. And by his word he relinquished it unto Mystra. Sleep, if thou canst, and if not, all the better. Thou must be ready. I may have need of thee. Thy soul is forfeit, but thy curiosity is not. Thou hast still much to discover, and if I know thee, thou wilt find thy rewards. Lae'zel. Halcyon. Thou hast saved the world, but thou didst make one mistake. The lost and wandering flock to him, and in him find their home. Nature and community alike thrive in their hands, and Halcyon doth smile to see it all. To defy the divine desires of thy father took no small strength of will. Thy wizard sacrificed himself to save the world. Halcyon doth now live in the earth he so loved. His body ample food for plants and animals. Hence thy self-imprisonment to protect the lives of others, but while thy body is imprisoned, thy mind wanders yet. Thou didst claim a place in the pantheon, thy divinity unassailable, the Karsite weave obeying thy every command. He sacrificed himself to save the world, and in so doing restored his good name with fair Mystra. Though one guest is notably missing, a former lover. From time to time Astarion doth ponder on inviting her, but deemeth it beneath a lord. An exile she was, and an exile she remains. With neither home nor god, she is matriarch of none. His partner travelled with him, and delighted to see his home, though, being a more adventurous sort, it is yet to be determined how long books will satisfy their appetite. But, as ever, his hubris was his downfall. Gale failed to master the crown's magic. It ignited the orb within him, and he perished in the blast. Thou wilt make thy mark on Wizardry Gale, and I shall be there to witness it. He hideth from Cazador still, but not in fear. For he knoweth that even if he were ever found, he would not be alone. And she is not alone. Her partner is still by her side, and doth soothe her with his company. An Illithid can only operate in the shadows for so long before it needeth a puppet. Now that thou art Illithid, thy soul is forfeit, for Illithids have them not. Thou must have been aware of this when thou chose thy fate. And he does not do it alone. His partner fighteth beside him still. Two champions as one. I have heard good words of thee from Mystra. She is proud of thee. Thou art Illithid, after all. What bars can hold such an intellect as thine? In many ways, thou art now freer than thou ever wast. Meanwhile, Will hath taken a spouse. A prettier pair hath Baldur's Gate ne'er known, nor more loyal to its people. Though no ballads are ever writ, his guests he welcometh to his home, his consort locketh the door. His devilish visage is a boon to him in this, for they do not see him coming, till he striketh, and he striketh fast and true. Hence thy revelry in thy new form. For his humility, Mystra offered him the ultimate reward, forgiveness. She re-anointed him her chosen, and rid him of the orb. And thee, a warrior to the heart, she fought for love, renounced her people and her plane to stay for one who mattered more to her than astral wars. And it doth not act alone. Baldur's Gate hath never known a steadier pair of hands. The Council of Four is re-established, and Grand Duke Will Ravengard guideth the city with benevolence and grace. And yet thou liveth, even as a stranger unto thyself. In Nathaniel's realm, under nature's watch, Halsin found his purpose. She defied her paranoid queen, freed her people's rebel prince, and found an ally along the way. He maketh good progress alone, but he doth miss the companionship of his champion, his one-time love. When Mizora is slain, he doth hope to see them still. Thou hast become a greater chosen than ever thou wert before, thine intelligence and wisdom a beacon for those who would study the weave, and a scourge to those who threaten it. Fortunately for thee, thy divine friend Gale was there to protect thee. When Raphael came knocking, he cast him straight back to the hells. Karlach's heart burned out, but Shadowheart stayed with her till the end. The challenge thou posed to Mystra did not spare thee from thy fate, a soulless aspirant to the Pantheon. The Patriarchs regroup. The Knights of the Shield grow strong again, as strong as they ever were, under the familiar mind that did guide them. But thy allies, who thou sacrificed alongside thyself, are heroes just as much as thee. Thou didst dare to challenge Mystra, to claim her domain as thine own. Fortunately, thy friends fare better than thee. The crown doth rest at the bottom of the Chionthar to this day. Drained of all its power, it is a mere trinket now. Jaheira. And she is not alone. Her illithid partner is by her side, and doth soothe her with its company. Poor Shadowheart. In life she sought darkness, and in darkness her life is over. Perverse Shah's right hand, she hath cleansed the ranks, leaving only the most faithful. The work is never done, and she relisheth it. Thou confessed thou had not thought upon't. Grand Duke he may now be, but Will's heart doth remain unchanged. To this day he continueth to be champion to the lost and the downtrodden, and bringeth to them fresh hope. For all her strength, she was not quick to explain the nature of her relationship with her illithid love to them. They embraced it quite readily. They had seen much worse. Zariel's forces prove an excellent distraction. As she and Karlach seek a cure for her heart, they are yet to find one, but what they find in one another is more than enough. The god of magic will not surrender her divinity lightly, and war ever rages twixt thee both. Still, thou provest willing to attempt the impossible. But she is not alone. With Karlach she descended unto Avernus, and found a veritable feast of bloodshed, intrigue, and conquest to be had. Gale stayed with Karlach to the very end. His love for her never wavered, even as she passed. She fulfilled her destiny, returned to the stars, and she did not do it alone. She achieved her lifelong desire, ascension, with her partner by her side. As Astarion's strength groweth, the likelihood of her cure and their return to this plane groweth too. She saved her parents from Shah's torture and secured them a home of their own. Some wounds are slow to heal, and some never will. She saved her parents from the perverse Shah's torture, and doth care for them at home. Some wounds are slow to heal, and some never will, but in their salvation she hath found her light. Today thou art born anew. Thus is thy story concluded, for now. A hidden cottage he built for his old love in the Undercity, and visiteth just as he promised, with sweetbreads, brains, and tales of mirth. The limits of thy power have not yet been reached, but to unlock thy whole potential requires time, forbearance. In refusing Mystra's offer of Elysium, thou didst embrace a new form of immortality. And with his sacrifice did he finally earn fair Mystra's grace. Gale and Karlach travel the hells together now, in search of a cure for her heart. As Gale's infernal knowledge groweth, so doth his love for her. Poor Boo! He lost his best friend and brother both in Minsk. For there are few things in this realm that can parallel the joy of hunting monsters with his shining star, his love. Thine independent heart prevailed, challenger of gods. Thy heroism a testament to thee. From their ashes bright flowers bloom, and from Karlach's too. For Shadowheart raised a garden to her loves, and doth tend it to this day. She seeketh to rectify that now the only way she can. Alone. Thou played thy part in weaving the fabric of fate itself. But for every thread thou sewed, so did the gods unravel another. Though one guest is notably missing, a former lover. From time to time, Astarion doth ponder inviting him, but deemeth it beneath a lord. Thou didst restore thyself in the eyes of Mystra, giving unto her the crown that threatened to destroy mortality and magic alike. Thy divinity cannot alter thy illithid nature. Thou art a god without a soul, the purest embodiment of ambition. And though Astarion doth spend his days sleeping once more, he doth not sleep alone. A feast of conquests opens up before them now. His love, Karlach, perished with the expiration of her heart. Though Astarion doth hold hope that there is life after death for her yet. After all, there was for him. There, she devoted herself once more to the cleansing of the ranks. Will. She overcame her fears to return from whence she came, and live, perhaps not the life she wanted, but the life she chose. He maketh good progress alone, but he doth miss the companionship of his champion, his one-time love, and doth hope some day to see them still. She made the awful choice and liberated her parents from their pain, and in so doing cured her own. She longeth for them still, but liveth at peace, knowing they found theirs. A warrior to the core. She fought for a homeland that was not her own, and in doing so, met someone she might share her life with. And he is not alone. 2 armchairs hath his library now, one for him, one for his darling husband. It doth not erase her pain, but doth hold her mind within its own expansive intellect, and dull the grief enough that she may feel it and be healed. The city needeth him for a while longer yet, but he hath not forgotten his pledge to Karlach. He will join her in Avernus as soon as he can, and trusts that she will hold Zariel's forces until then. Thy father hath quite the imagination for punishment. To date, 1,259 foul beasts bear his spawn through thee. Thy hubris was thy downfall once again. Thou didst reforge the crown without knowing the true nature of its power, or the orb within thy chest. Not all who see it in the fold are welcoming of it, but thanks to Halsin's efforts, their minds are turning. Nature strives for balance through him, and harmony is close. The wizard Gale saved everyone, and cost his closest friends their lives. In crowning thyself, thou wrought thine own destruction. The orb at last exploded, and with it took thy life. An attempt to join the pantheon even briefer than Karsa's own. Noble in spirit, if not in name. The Blade of Frontiers doth still fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Though no ballads are ever writ, such is the fear that doth swirl about Astarion and his bloody consort. A warrior to the core, she fought for a homeland that was not her own, and in so doing made a home in it. But thou wert not the only one to pursue a greater destiny. Rumours abound among the flock of what their mistress does when she slinks away in the dead of night, and with whom she meets. Yet none dare pry. Will hath ventured to Avernus with his love, and hath left his father ruling in his place until his return. Sleep, rest, revel, but be ready, for thou mayest yet be needed. What path doth await them is yet untold. The world entire is theirs to venture into, and perhaps theirs to claim. Though she did not restore thee as her chosen, she believes in thy potential yet. She cured thee of the orb's affliction, that thou mayst continue thy studies of magic with improved and blessed wisdom. Though he beareth the visage of a devil, he commandeth the respect of patria and pauper alike. The blade still doth devote himself to the protection of the weak, though now he doeth so from the fires of Avernus, alongside Karlach. Too obsessed with retrieving it, Gale neglected his care of the orb. Its hunger returned and consumed him, and Gale was no more. Thou hast found value in thy mortal life that even gods may envy. But by the night orchid's bloom, her mind doth wander to old friends and old loves. Karlach. She stayed with her as she promised, to the very end, till all light was gone. Having killed his former master, he took over the palace, where he was once a servant. His first act, raze it to the ground and burn away every trace of Cazador's existence. Though Mystra deigned to cure thee of the orb, she did not restore to thee thy mortal form. Gale eventually returned to Waterdeep, his life now not so different from what it was. Only now he is content. But he longeth to be free of her burden, for he longs for his shining star still, his once partner, his love, the champion of his soul. No rest for she who would keep the world from chaos. Just the lull between battles, never long, but sometimes enough. Fortunately for thee, Mystra was there to protect thee. When Raphael came knocking, she cast him straight back to the hells. His home is now a strange one, for contrary to any plans he laid, he doth find himself in Avernus, battling beside his love, Karlach. Now she ventureth to the hells, where she standeth against the hordes of Zariel, alongside her life's great love. Karlach's unfortunate fate, however, lingereth never far from Will's mind. Thou wast doubtful, but supposed that they must follow the natural order of all living things. Poor Minthara, exiled from her home, tormented by a false god, and denied her vengeance. Gale's ambitions are far more modest now. He returned home to Waterdeep. The only thing he doth hunger to consume is an excellent book. Hence thy will to sacrifice thyself a second time, yet here thou art speaking with me. How can it be? His only regret, that Karlach doth not fight beside him. But thou art as much a hero in this tale as he. Though she died exactly as she lived, herself, free. And she is not alone. Her partner is still by her side, and doth soothe her with her company. Together she and Karlach raised the hells and made Zariel tremble with their might. Thus concludes the ledger. My debts are paid, but for one. Though one guest is notably missing, a former lover. From time to time, Astarion doth ponder inviting them, but deemeth it beneath a lord. Her story is yet to close. She liveth her life as ever she did, but misseth something in her soul. Shadow Heart. I ask of thee, what is't that doth outlive a mortal life but a soul? And yet thou art illithid.